have service awards. Last year, because of the ice and snow, some of the awards did not make it here. They were stuck at home. And so Joel was the chair who would have awarded those last year. I'm going to give him the opportunity to do that this year.
Good morning. First, if Susan Slavitz would come up, please. I want to recognize Susan for her job as Local Arrangements Chair in Jacksonville. Limber up, we're going to have a lot of applause. We're going to get a lot of stuff.
Thank you, dear.
For her hard work as Virginia State Rep, Sandy Vaya. For his work as conference chair last year in Jacksonville, Charles Smyers. For her work last year's program chair, Susan Hill. You all can settle in. For her work as awards chair, Mississippi State Representative, assistant chair, and meeting planner, Laura Hammonds. For her work as North Carolina State Representative from 2005 to 2008, Barbara Taylor. See, Barbara, you've been so ugly to me, I'm giving you an award.
And I get to do this last one for his work as conference planner at Huntsville, for working as Tennessee State Rep, our assistant chair, and chair of Tika SC, and as the conference planner for next year. Thank you, Joel Henderson. Okay, and we have some service awards to offer for this year. And I have notes. These are. Our lovely ladies of Kentucky. Betty Weldon, if you would please stand where you are. Betty Weldon, Meg Matheny, Eliza Young, Marlisa Austin, Laura Deering. That entire committee was here earlier for our conference. These lovely ladies of Louisville, Louisville. You knocked one out of the park, ladies. You are sluggers. We had a great conference despite the ice and the snow. And you made a profit for this organization. Thank you so very much. And we will have tokens of appreciation for you that can be carried by car and not plane next year at our conference. Thank you so much. We have newly elected members of the REC I'd like to introduce. Our North Carolina representative is Courtney Doyle. And I think, is Courtney with us? Hi, Courtney. Great to meet you. From Georgia, we have Carol Creekmore, and she is also going to serve as the conference planner for 2011. And somebody who needs no introduction. From Mississippi, Laura Hammonds is our new working as a team on our journal. We have Meg Matheny of Kentucky and Myrna Norcross of South Carolina. And from Florida, our new advertising manager is Wendy from the Sierra. Okay, and now I get the chance to give some hugs and say thanks to folks who are rotating off our REC. First, Bess Ebbinghaus, if you would come to the front. come on to the front? Is Michael still here? With the advertising manager's position, Charles Myers reminded us in our REC meeting, this is a key position for the organization because we get most of our monies for operation from our memberships and from advertising. And so that is a key position. She works with our publishers to make sure we have the advertising for the journal. So it is a key position. Michael Haddock. Michael doesn't want to hug me. Michael was our journal editor and worked very hard in that position, and we'll make sure he gets this official thanks for the 3 years that he has put in for the organization. Next we have Thad Cockrell. And Thad has served us in many ways. Tennessee State Rep at one point, is that correct? No? But he was our journal editor for how many years? 6 years as journal editor, and 3 years as our representative to National TICA. Thank you. Betty Weldon. And Betty was our conference chair last year, did an admirable job in Kentucky, and has worked for us just pecking away on that computer for 6 years now as our secretary on the REC. Charles Myers. Charles is a Dostler winner for this organization. He has served as REC chair, been a member of the REC for I don't know how long. He's on our new nominating committee. He has run the conference down in Louisville and filled in for us for the last 2 years of the term when somebody had to resign. He's been the man with his hand on the purse strings and has done a wonderful job for TICA SC. And let me say to all members of the REC, thank you so very much for your hard work. Now, our ladies from this year, is Barbara Taylor here? Would you please stand back there, Barbara? B.J. Zamora.
She's in the back watching the equipment.
Of course she's busy. Okay, Ann Helms. I know I saw Ann earlier, and Joanne Buck.
They're standing. They're guarding the call.
Here they come. I see them all. I know you want the chance to tell these folks how much you have enjoyed this year at Greensboro. Thank you for your hard work, to you and your team. And BJ, here you go. You've heard her say this in every meeting we've been in, I think. Make sure you fill out this form. You have them on your seat. At the top, please write in closing session, and she'll collect these as we leave today.
You don't leave without giving.
Don't leave without. Let's see, next order of business, I think is fun. We get to hear from our conference speaker for today. Joanne is going to do our introduction.
If you enjoyed this conference, let people at the North Carolina Humanities Council, I'm serious. The nice thing about the council has been that it has given not only North Carolina two-year colleges some prominence, but it also has connected us better with the National Humanities Council, who are looking at us. So I hope you'll use that as a model. One of the reviewers who looked at our conference proposal that Julie wrote said, this is a national level conference in a local setting. So I hope if you enjoyed this, you might send them an email or a little note that says their money was well spent. And on that note, I will tell you about our last speaker. Not that I needed my room. It's my pleasure today to read this. The issue that transformed Greensboro into an armed camp was stark in its simplicity and devastating in its ability to crystallize racial tensions. Claude Barnes was a junior at Dudley High School. He had been president of his class, vice president of the school service club, an honor student, and a member of the student council. Barnes had also participated in a student group organized by GAP around the theme of Black unity. In April, a joint faculty-student election committee ruled that Barnes lacked the qualifications to be a candidate for student council president. The committee gave no reasons. When the election was held on May 2nd, Barnes received 600 write-in votes, 400 more than the runner-up. But since write-in ballots were illegal, the runner-up was declared the victor. That day, Barnes and 4 other students walked out of the school in protest. The episode set in motion a series of events that 3 weeks later led to more than 600 National Guard troops occupying Black Greensboro. So begins the recounting of history by William Henry Schaaf on page 85 of his seminal work on Greensboro, Civilities and Civil Rights. Claude Barnes' education obviously did not end that day at Dudley High School. He has obviously gone on and has a degree from North Carolina A&T and received master's and PhD degrees in political science from Clark Atlanta University, and is now on the political science faculty at North Carolina A&T. He is still active in numerous causes where people are striving for justice. He's here this morning to share some of North Carolina's experiences with you, missing pages on the civil rights movement, protest, revolt, and social change in Greensboro, North Carolina. Please welcome me. Please welcome me. I'm sorry. You can welcome me on the way out, but welcome me. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Barnes this morning. We appreciate it. Oh, I'm so shy. This is so hard for me. And these are my friends' glasses.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that great introduction, I suppose. And
Who wants to run the business?
I'll take that back. But I want to welcome all the members of Titus of Greensboro, North Carolina. We call it the Gate City. I hope you had an opportunity to move around and enjoy some of the good things that Greensboro has to offer. You might not be aware that Greensboro is also one of the birthplaces of the civil rights movement in several different respects, and that's what I chose to give my remarks about. But before I do that, I do have to say a couple of things. First of all, you might not know that I started off my career as a college professor at Gainesville Junior College in Gainesville, Georgia. And I was one of the first black professors to get hired at Gainesville Junior College. And you need to also know that I'm absolutely terrified to give a talk in front of a group of English professors and humanities professors. But English and humanities is certainly one of the first disciplines that got me interested in writing and publishing. And I've been writing and publishing ever since my advanced English professor suggested I might have some talent for this kind of activity. So again, I want to welcome you on behalf of Greensboro, and I feel quite at home being in a group of English professors, but I'm also terrified. I want you to understand that. I thank Joanne Buck for inviting me, and I thank Tyka for having this focus on other voices and diverse voices. I think more organizations need to pay attention to this particular topic. Our country still has a long way to go. We've certainly come a long way. If you think about it, 60 years ago, this kind of gathering would be illegal. 50, 60 years ago, certainly in Greensboro, a gathering of this type with mixed races and whatnot, an integrated situation would be illegal. So our country has certainly come a long way, and I just want to point out some of the roles that Greensboro has played in bringing our country to a different place in time. So I'll start off with a couple of quotes. One is from one of my favorite authors who played a major role in providing the rationale for Brown versus Board of Education, and it's Kenneth Clark. This is just a simple quote that sort of puts things in context, I think. It's now generally understood that the chronic and remedial social injustices corrode and damage the human personality, thereby robbing it of its effectiveness, of its creativity, if not its actual humanity. That was from Dark Ghetto in 1965. This next quote sort of puts my presentation in perspective. Oppression and injustice are the fuel of protest and revolt. And this third quote is from a good friend of mine, Adolph Reed, who I'd recommend highly. He's a very prolific scholar, has many books out and articles he publishes in The Progressive, The Nation, and other places. But he says that politicians are only as good as the social forces they have to respond to. And he made this comment at a conference up in Virginia, talking about national politics, and he made the comment that, we actually, African American community, actually got more substantive policies out of Richard Nixon than we got out of President Clinton. And a lot of that had to do with the nature of the social forces at that particular point in time. I also want to suggest to you that Greensboro is an interesting place because it is a place that has contributed to all the different phases of the civil rights movement. When most people talk about the civil rights movement, what they have in mind is the direct action, nonviolent, passive resistance phase of the civil rights movement. Martin King, the Montgomery bus boycott, and what have you. But before that, go back to the 1940s, there was a long decade of legal struggle that was led by the NAACP, Thurgood Marshall, and even people from Greensboro, like Dr. George Simpkins, who I'll talk about in a second. So there was a whole legal preparatory phase that went into clearing the ground, if you will, for the protest stage. So from 1944 to about 1974, you can really think of that as the modern civil rights movement. The second phase, of course, is the one that most people are familiar with. And then the third phase is one that most people are not familiar with, especially the younger generation. And that is, I call it the Black Power phase. But these are all three phases of the same social movement. The struggle was complex, of course. It involved shifts in strategy and tactics. Shifts in strategy and tactics. Phase one, as I call the legal phase. Phase two, protest. Phase three, Black Power. These tactics included conventional and unconventional means. They included protests, they included boycotts, they included passive as well as aggressive resistance. And last but not least, in some cases, it included armed self-defense. Unfortunately, historical amnesia and many scholars are only now beginning to recapture the role that the Black Power movement played as a part of the civil rights movement. Next slide, please. Here's a picture of Rosa Parks in the Montgomery bus boycott. We're all familiar with the role that she played in animating and getting people interested in that movement. Next slide.